How can shadow work, that exploration of those parts of ourselves that we don't want to acknowledge we have, good and bad, how does that actually contribute to our happiness? How does shadow work, looking particularly at those parts of ourselves that we don't want to know we have or try to pretend we don't have, how does that actually contribute to our happiness? That's what we're going to talk about in this video today, but before we do, hi, I'm Sandra from mysterywitchschool.com. If you're new to the channel and you want to know more about Wicca or become a Wiccan or know more about the inner work or the inner path of Wicca, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any videos. Shadow work is one of my favorite topics. It's most likely because it's been what I've battled with most of my life, and as I have mentioned on my video about life purpose, often what our biggest struggles are in our life is actually got a lot to do with our life's work and our life's purpose. So shadow work for me has been the work that has actually helped me become happier, because I had so much self-doubt and so much self-hatred actually in my past, that the work of inner inquiry, which it can also be known as, has been really, really helpful to me. So shadow work these days has really gone beyond the earlier definition. It's kind of gone beyond looking at those parts of ourselves that we want to pretend we don't have or we're told we shouldn't be. Such things as I talk about, like selfishness, greed, narcissism, all of these negative things, beliefs that we have about the world, about ourselves, and all sorts of things are part of the shadow. And they're part of the ego, the dark side of the ego, you might want to call it. And the reason why the ego goes into these shadow realms and has these experiences and causes us to act in ways that aren't very nice, that ways can be very destructive, very cruel, is because it thinks that's how it can keep you safe. And it's learned that. It's learned that from our environment that we grew up in. So that's all of our environment. That's our families, our cultural environment, social environment, schooling, everything. So we tend to want to run away from those parts of ourselves that we don't like, that we wish we didn't have, and that we've been told we shouldn't be. The problem with running away from these things is that we put judgment on these things when we see them in ourselves, but we also put judgment on these things when we see them in other people. And one of the best ways to work with the shadow is to see what you really despise in other people, what really pushes your buttons, what really you find offensive in other people, and actually go, hey, that's actually inside myself. I am just like that person. In some way, shape or form, I'm like that person and I'm not willing to admit it. Every shadow quality that you have, every shadow quality that somebody else has, every human being on this planet actually has inside them. And that's the good news. The good news is every human being, humanity, people, we all share the exact same shadow qualities. So when we're judging ourselves, we're judging everybody, and when we're judging other people, we're judging ourselves. So how does that contribute to our happiness? Well, number one is you're not alone. You're not the only one experiencing this stuff. So that's good news. You know, you're not the only person who's experiencing perhaps a tendency towards being particularly greedy, perhaps, or selfish, perhaps, or some other quality that you see in your side that you don't like. Every other human being on this planet has this in their shadow. Some people have it to more of a degree than others. Some people have the ability to be able to integrate the shadow with their light side. Some people just understand why those things are there, and they're able to be more conscious of them and not let them control them. It's just acknowledging that they're there. When you do shadow work, you become more conscious of these parts of yourself. You become more conscious of the dark parts of your shadow, which are the parts that we don't like. But also there's other parts of the shadow that are actually really positive things. So these are things that you might be really good at, but you're too afraid or you feel ashamed of actually expressing because somewhere in your past you've been told that you shouldn't express them. So these could be really positive things. They could be talents that you have. They could be qualities that you have that you're afraid to bring out because you've learned that it's not safe to bring them out. So the shadow can be about positive things and things that aren't so positive. So think of it, I guess, as negative and constructive things, or destructive and constructive things. Because I don't really want to get caught up in that duality. I want to look more at polarity, and that our subconscious has that polarity, destruction and creation. It's in with every human being. So what brings happiness out of this is when we learn and accept that we all share these qualities and that we're not alone, and that what we can actually do is understand why these qualities exist, so that when we feel them and we're aware that we're going into them, we can consciously take control of the situation and see the reality for what it is and not fall victim to the sway of the shadow and fall into those shadow qualities. When we acknowledge that even in some of these shadow qualities, there's actually a gift in them. So the gift might be you need to be more concerned about self-care. Don't always be give. Sometimes you do have to receive, and that receiving and even wanting to receive is not being greedy all of the time. Greed comes from a fear of scarcity. So if you understand that within yourself and you understand the fear of scarcity within yourself, then you'll know that it's okay to receive and it's okay to give. So if you're working on greed, for example, you can see greed as being your need to receive, which we all have. And once you integrate that and understand that it comes from a fear of scarcity and you deal with that, you'll actually find that you'll become more giving. And when you integrate the greed or the need to receive and have into your personality, it helps you lose that fear and you actually can become more generous and more giving. So by accepting the gift in the shadow, it can actually help you do the opposite or become the opposite. And that's how it can help you with your happiness. It eases the pain of judging yourself for having the shadow quality. It eases the pain of the shame around having these qualities, and it takes the gift in these qualities, or what the ego is trying to alert you to in these qualities, and helps you integrate them into a way that is more productive for you. And in the doing of that, it actually helps you become more happy. Why are you more happy? Because you're not judging yourself for having these qualities. And if somebody does come along and starts throwing names at you and telling you, hey, you're being greedy, you're being selfish, you're being blah, 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 you can look at yourself and go, yeah, okay, maybe I have fallen a little bit more into these things. Or you can go, well, yeah, I do have these inside me and I'm well aware of it. And when other people try to point them out to you, it's no longer puts you into that place of shame, because you know that you and that other person both have these qualities in the shadow. And if they're really pointing them out at you, then they're probably just looking at their own reflection in your mirror and seeing those qualities coming out of you that are actually part of them as well, that they don't want to admit they have within themselves. So there's this constant reaction between every human being where we're seeing parts of ourselves in other people. The people that we admire have the qualities that we have in ourselves that we're not really game to put out in the world because we don't feel confident enough in putting them out there. And the people that we despise have those shadow qualities that we have inside us that we want to pretend we don't have. The happiness comes from understanding that we have all of this inside us, and when we can really go to ourselves, yes, I can be greedy, yes, I can be selfish, yes, I can fall into narcissism, and know that the flip side of those things, that the positive aspects of those things first are really to do with self-care, being able to express oneself confidently, and being able to give more to the self and receive more. Then you're not going to fall into judgment over yourself. The things that make us really, really unhappy is when we're judging ourselves and judging other people. So when we're judging other people, we're trying to get them to change for our benefit. And when we're judging ourselves, we're beating ourselves up. The happiness comes from when we can stop doing that. And when we stop judging ourselves, and we learn then that we can actually take control of how we feel. We know that we have pretty much most of the control over how we feel every day. And if somebody does try to throw something, even if it might throw you off a little bit at first, if you're able to just step back and really feel into what you're experiencing, it doesn't hurt you so much. You don't get offended so much. You don't go into defense necessarily as much. Not saying that it doesn't happen, because it does still happen. The ego still wants to protect us, but we're less likely to fall into this judgment game on ourselves and a judgment game on the other person. And that's where the happiness is. It's where we stop judging ourselves. That's where happiness really starts to happen. But of course, it's hard to know that until you start experiencing that. And I'm not saying that I've totally got it together, because I don't. I mean, I still fall into the shadow stuff myself. I'm still working on the shadow stuff myself. It's just that I've done enough work on it to know the benefits of it. So I'm looking forward to doing more work on it so that I can reap even more of the benefits of experiencing what how the shadow can actually bring happiness. So this video was actually a response to a viewer who wanted me to talk about happiness and shadow work. So I hope that that has made some sense. I do shadow work with people one-to-one, which really just really helps you release all of that crap that's inside, the self-doubt, self-loathing, the shame, all of these things that's stopping you from moving forward in your life and being happy. So if you do want to try doing some one-on-one work with me on shadow work, I do offer a free 30-minute clarity session where we get together and we talk about what your situation is, get you a little bit clearer about what is actually going on for you. And then if you want to work with me, we can talk about that at the end. So I'll put the link to my calendar in the description field below this video. If you like the video, hit the like button, share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Sandra from mysterywitchschool.com. Blessed be.